We are here today at Fort Clinch, Fernandina, Florida, St. Mary's River and Cumberland Sound. It's a little bit windy today. Hopefully the wind's not going to interfere with the video. We'll see how it turns out. And I'm using the head mount camera again today. Hopefully everything's lined up. Again, the internet connection out here is not that good with my phone, but we're going in the visitor center and pay my little admission fee, and then we'll get on out to the fort and do our little tour. Good morning. How you doing?
This is Fort Clinch Visitor Center. Do you know if you got an order from us for 3 pounds of wood?
Thank you, darling. Have a good day now. All righty. I would have said hello to her and tell her she was on my video, but she was on the phone ordering some wood apparently. So Fort Clinch, we're going to go in the little museum here first, and then I'll start talking a little bit more. There's a little bit of stuff in here, not a whole lot. We're going to make this real quick and get on out to the fort. Now, hopefully you can see this picture here of Duncan Lamont Clinch. He was a general in the U.S. Army, and the fort was named after him. Now, this is a Gatling gun. I doubt very seriously they had a Gatling gun here. Now, they may have had one of these here during the Spanish-American War, but being this fort was never really fortified at any given time or fully functional, I doubt very seriously they had a Gatling gun here, but it's a very nice display nonetheless. They've got a few artifacts in here. Not a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm going to try and stay away from the television back there. So this is some of the artillery that was used here, or they had available here. Anyway, now that 42 pounder, when we get out and you see the cannons out there in a few minutes or whatever, that's what they would have used in the Rodman guns that were used here. Now, that's an old cartridge rifle and actually a muzzle loading pistol. That was a Spencer rifle. Now this here was a 1864 Springfield. Both of them are originals. One of them's definitely seen a lot better days than the other one. The one up front here is in really good shape, and the other one is something you would just hang over the fireplace and say you had one. But the top one is actually a cap and ball, and that bottom Springfield, the latch actually comes up and a cartridge goes in. Now, there's a picture there. I'll have to get to the side without glare or whatever of Abraham Lincoln. That was a portrait done by William Marshall. Actually, that portrait was done in 1866 after he passed away. Now, coming out towards the fort now. Now, Fort Clinch was named after Duncan Lamont Clinch. Now, he was a general that was very prominent in the Seminole Wars here in Florida and in the War of 1812. Now, he died in, I want to say 1846, something like that. He's buried up in Savannah, and his son, Duncan Lamont Clinch Jr., actually had the brigade that was over in Georgia, the 4th Georgia, and some of my ancestors were in the 4th Georgia Cavalry under Captain E.D. Tracy. E.D. Tracy, he's buried over in Traders Hill Cemetery. Now, like I said, it's really breezy out here today, and hopefully we're not going to get too much disturbance from this. Now, Fort Clinch was originally fortified in the 1730s. Now, at that point in time, it was just a earthworks fortification that the Spanish had here, and it wasn't until about 100 years later that the U.S. government, of course, Florida didn't become a state until 1845. It was a territory, I think, 1822. My memory serves me correct. But they didn't actually start fortifications here until the later 1800s now. Well, mid-late 1800s. 1860, with the oncoming of the war between the states, here and started the fortifications. Now, this is a brick pentagonal design fort, and they claim there's about 5 million bricks in this construction, and I would venture to say there's at least that many, maybe more. Now, this does have a I don't think this is a moat that ever had water in it. The slopes were basically just a fortification to make it harder for any enemy forces to do any damage to the fort or the people that were inside of it. The drawbridge is here, and controls the theater right inside the they've got a fire going somewhere. I can smell it burning. It smells good this morning. But the brick walls are on the inner and the outer part of the fort with earth in between the brick walls. It's not a solid fortification like Castillo de San Marcos down in St. Augustine. This would have been the courtyard where the drilling took place and everyday life for the soldiers that were stationed here. Now, this fort was designed to have roughly 70 guns on the walls, and the guns that they have on the walls now are Rodman guns, and I think they've got about a dozen or so up on the walls. Now, over here where we're first building we're going in, this would have been the officers' quarters. I was just corrected. This would be the guard house. And they've got double bunks in here. They could put 12 men in here. And they've got some of the flags in the corner over there. And fairly good sized room. Of course, you get 12 men in here. Could be pretty crowded. And over here they've got calls of the day. 5 a.m. would be reveille, 5:15 assembly, 6 o'clock breakfast, 7 o'clock sick call, 7:30 would be morning drill, 12 o'clock, they call it dinner on here. And 4 o'clock was parade, 5:30 supper, and 7:30, almost looks like it says tattoo. Not sure what that would mean. And of course on the wall over there you've got Lincoln up top. That would be Stanton on the right. He was the Secretary of War at the time of the Civil War. Now, like I said, there really weren't ever any battles fought here. So as far as historic significance, there's not a whole bunch. I guess they're doing a tour. You can call in advance and arrange tours. Now, this would be the cell block area here, what I would call the guardhouse. Now we can't see inside of that door there because it's dark on the inside, but you can see the lock there on the door, and that would have been a solitary confinement deal there. And here we've got some actually ball and chains inside this small cell. Once again, 12 men bunking area. And over here you've got George Washington. You've got Ulysses S. Grant. And it looks like that might be George Armstrong Custer on the right there. I'm not sure who that is, but it kind of looks like Custer. Now this would be the drunk tank over here. In fact, they've got signs that apparently they hung around their necks like colonial times. And they've got one there that says thief, one that says drunkard, and another one that says latrine duty. It would definitely not be somewhere that you would want to be, especially in the summertime. And today's not cold, it's a little bit cool. Got a good breeze blowing. I've got a light windbreaker on and I'm comfortable. Normally I would be wearing shorts. I do that today because of this 25-mile-an-hour wind that's blowing today. It's a little bit cool. Now, moving over here, this area here would serve 8 soldiers. Now, I'm guessing here because I don't know, but this would probably be where your sergeants and your corporals would be housed. Some enlisted personnel, I'm sure. And I don't know whether you can see the ceilings or not, but they have wood beams going across the ceiling, and they have concave ceilings with what would be almost a rebar type reinforcement. Now, they've got good ventilation in here. They've got big windows, and that would be a necessary thing here during the summertime. Now, next door to this, if I'm not mistaken, is the mid-range officers on the other end. I'm sure this would be lieutenants. May have had a couple of sergeants in here, but some of the rooms in this one here is a little more private. You don't have stacked bunks. You've got single bunks in here, game boards. Very cozy little place. Like I say, with the door open today, there's a good breeze blowing through here. This would be where they would take their meals. Now, they cooked in a different spot, and the meals would have been delivered here by an orderly of some type. Everything here is brick brick construction. Actually got a private room here, so you would think this would be, at the very least, a lieutenant. Well, it would even possibly have a captain in here. I'm not sure what the ranking commander would be here, being the fort really had significance, but not a lot of significance or whatever. I would imagine probably a colonel probably would have been in charge of the fort. Now, the Confederates here were they were here for a very short period of time. They were here 1861. First part of 1862, around March or April, Robert E. Lee gave the order to abandon the fort because forces were needed elsewhere. And even though Florida was important to the Confederacy, and its importance was more for, to be honest, a food supply than anything else. We had a lot of free roaming cattle here in Florida. But this would have been a bread basket, so to speak. I'm not sure. There's, of course, no lighting in any of these buildings, but this would be the blacksmith shop. You would think it would have been a little more ventilated, with the smoke that would be coming out. At least think they would have had some type of a window on the other side with the heat. Got what would be called a dog trot going through the one of the cooking areas. We've got 50-gallon drums in there. Different stores. Got several ovens in the back and a big prep table. Got a butter churn, a couple of big crops. Sign there says weevil free hardtack. Well, weevil free. Now, that would have been a staircase there going up to the wall where they would have run ammunition. Now, this is a ramp that goes up to the top fortification, and this is a hallway that goes through, and there's earthworks all around us on the outside of these bricks. Now, the earthworks on the inside of this would have held things together fairly well, but it wasn't nowhere near as strong, in my opinion, as the coquina, like Castillo de San Marcos. Coquina was kind of like a sponge and would bounce cannonball off of it more so than brick. That brick, when something hits it, it's going to break. Now, this is in the, what I call the mode area. We've got a rifle port there, and there's actually you could use it for either one, a rifle or a cannon. I know this tripod platform that they've got here would be set up for a smaller cannon. And I'm guessing that they would have probably used more of a grape shot out of this setup than they would a cannonball to kill as many men as possible, kind of like a shotgun blast. Now, in here they would have kept powder, balls, and such, and there's no lighting in there, and I'm not going to go in there because there could be a rattlesnake in there. They have a tendency to like places like that, and I'm not going to tempt fate. Now, through there, you can see the outer walls of the fort. Like I say, this was a hexagonal, or pentagonal, excuse me, not hex, but pentagonal, which means five-sided fort. And all these bastions on the corner, they give maximum protection to where you could have firepower along the walls from one port to the other. Now, the thickness of these walls probably about 100 feet of earth packed on top of this. They are doing some restorations, which I'm glad to see. I was here a couple of weeks ago and tried to shoot a video, and it didn't turn out that well, so I decided not to post it. Come back another day and try it again, and hopefully this one will be a little bit better here today. The wind isn't messing up sound too much. On the corner, that left corner of the building in front of us was the Sutter's store. Now, all these buildings are two-story. Up top would have been barracks, house the men. And I guess we'll probably be able to look through the window on this, but the Sutter store was an independent contractor, so to speak, would have and sell supplies to the servicemen that the Army did not issue. And they've about got it set up now. He was still setting this up when I was here a couple of weeks ago. Looks like he's got things raring to go. Now, next door to the Sutters is where they stored cartridges and powders, rifles. Now, these were 58 caliber. Now the 58 caliber muzzle loader was a heck of a charge. I had a 58 caliber Hawken rifle that with a 210 grain bullet and about 100 grains of powder or so, give or take, had the knockdown power of a .458 Winchester Magnum. That will hurt you. Now, here, this would be considered the commissary area where the soldiers would come in and get their supplies that were issued by the government, and probably also doubled as a payroll office as well. Now, the Union occupied the fort from mid-1862. It was pretty much abandoned. The government still had control on it and owned it. They really didn't do anything with it, and the fort started falling in disrepair, and they really didn't use it again until the late 19th century in the Spanish-American War, and they used it as a depot more than anything else. Like I say, I don't know that there was ever a shot fired in anger at an enemy. Now, along here would be where you would have riflemen or anybody that would be attacking from the inlet side. This embankment here that goes up would be if anybody actually got over the wall. It would be hard for them to scale that and get to the cannons. Now, this wall is about 4 foot thick, but I'm going to tell you, if you get a 40-pound cannonball, especially if it's take a whole lot. I'm going to go over here where there's more kitchen and scullery areas and latrines. Wasn't like today where we have electricity. But anyway, after the Spanish-American War, the fort was abandoned again. And it was finally sold to a private party at some point in time. And here again with neglect and one thing and another, in the 40s, no, actually in the 30s it would have been, to the 40s. Actually, they were even here during World War II. They took it back over for a little while just as a coastal defense mechanism. Oh, but the CCC, which was a civilian project, FDR administration, and they had civilians in here restoring the fort and doing work to it to put people, give people jobs. People were out of work, unemployment was high, so unlike today where the government just gives people money, FDR's projects, people got out and worked for the money that they got from the government. Now, that would have been a baking oven here, and you can see the cast iron cooking utensils over there. But this would be the cook's house. Got oil lamps. It's a rather ingenious setup there. Never seen an oil lamp exactly like that, but I could see that functioning very well. And they do have it on a cord hanging from the roof. And I would imagine every once in a while one of those would burn through and they'd fall to the ground, which is why they're made of metal, I guess. So, pump house, this would be where the soldiers would come and not only get their drinking water, but got some wash tubs there. This is where they would pretty much bathe. They would take a little bit of water back to their quarters to wash their face and hands with, but they'd stand out here on this platform here and give themselves a wash. There's one of several latrines. Another walk through to the outer walls. Now, this would be another powder storage area. There was many of these for convenience to get up to the walls where they would have steps, usually beside the powder magazines. The people taking the powder up to the cannon. Now, I don't know if any of you've ever used a... How you doing?
Good.
outhouse before, but they are definitely different from the modern conveniences that we have today. I know about an outhouse firsthand. My grandparents had outhouse until, well, I'll put it this way, a house they had back in the early to late 60s, and actually even up into the later than that, they had an outhouse in their backyard. In fact, childhood home that my father had bought from my grandfather, they built a little house to the side of it, and they didn't have a bathroom. They heated the water and took a bath in a number 3 wash tub. Now, number 3 wash tubs a little bit bigger than these are here, but I took many a bath in a number 3 wash tub. I'm going to go up on the wall now. A little bit of a climb. I'm going to go up the slope. Those there are long mortars, short cannon. Usually those were used for elevated lob shots, is what I would call them, where they send them up in the air and have it crashing down on top of the enemy, as opposed to a straight on shot. Now, this fort, like I said before, was designed for 70 guns, and it never was fully fortified. Now, the view from up here is very good. Got the Nassau County Police Department here today. Must be doing a meeting of some kind. It's going to be windy up here, so I'm going to speak a little bit louder. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time up here because of the wind. Basically, I'm up here for the view and to look at these Rodman guns. Now, these Rodmans are on parapet runners here. They've got 160-degree shooting radius. Now, these were brought in later. They are Civil War era. Rodman guns, and these shot a 42-pound cannonball. That would be a solid cannonball. They also had some that were hollowed and explosive. Now, if you look out in this direction, you've got the Atlantic Ocean out there. A lot of waves out there today. You can go out there when this wind dies down, and the shark teeth will be all over the place. in the center out there, something that was brought in later. That's a 10-pounder out there in the middle of the courtyard. Now they don't have the flag flying today, which I find odd. A couple of weeks ago when I was here, they had a flag that had a star in the blue field, and it was a star made of flowers. Now, on this side would be the Cumberland Sound and the entry to the St. Mary's River. Now, this was basically the reason for this being here, is to guard this inlet, keep ships taking troops up into the interior of the state. Over there is Georgia. St. Mary's River separates Georgia and Florida. And St. Mary's River runs west. Then it takes a rough 90-degree turn and goes south, and then goes west again. In fact, over there around Green Cemetery and Envious and all like that, or whatever, they are right on the St. Mary's over there. You've heard me talk about Trader's Hill. Now, Trader's Hill over there was the farthest navigable spot for a boat of any size that could carry any type of supplies or anything like that up the St. Mary's River, and there was a trading post there. Hence the name Trader's Hill. And across from it on the river was a place they called Red Bluff. Red Bluff was the swimming hole. Now, my great grandfather was a Scotsman, merchant seaman, that come over to this country, and he met my great grandmother over there, Polly Ann Tanner, and married her. But him taking the St. Mary's River up to Trader's Hill is what caused that to happen. So that is, well, let's go over here and take a look on the land side for a minute. Because we've just about run the course here. Now this is Coconut here. In my opinion, for what it's worth, they'd have been better served building this fort out of coquina as brick. But the brick fort is definitely a wonderment and a sight to behold. So you look there on that Rodman gun, you can see that wooden plug that's put in there to keep not only water out, but birds from nesting. Inside there, that would be a pretty good size cannonball. Now the Rodmans were not rifled. They were straight cylinder. So they weren't as accurate as a rifled cannon would be. But got news for you. If they hit you, you would definitely know it. It'd be a awesome sight to see. There's the courtyard out there, and I sure hope this camera's set where you can see all this. I will, but I don't want to do this video over if I don't have to. Like I say, I wasn't happy with the first one I done, so I decided to do a reshoot. So that is Fort Clinch. Captain A.F. Sears, Commanding Officer, Company E, 1st New York Civil Engineers. Now that would have been one of the restoration projects between the wars and restoration during the Depression. The New York engineers come down and helped out with a lot of this, and I'm glad to see that they're doing some work on this place. And this is a state park, Florida State Park. There's an admission fee. There's an admission, of course, to get into the fort. They have a nice campground. They've got a lot of trails. It's a nice place to come if you visit Florida. There's history here, but not a lot of death and destruction history. It definitely falls into the category of my page here, Pioneers. So we're gonna line this up. Like I say, hopefully you're gonna be able to see this video. Once again, as always, I appreciate you taking a look at what I'm doing. Ask you to like and subscribe. Nothing else to boost my ego a little bit. I am not a professional. I tinker a little bit with stuff, but I do it more for my own enjoyment and the historical value that maybe somebody would see this that wouldn't get a chance to come here and visit. Now, Castillo de San Marcos is a whole nother deal. Go there. Also want to go to Fort Caroline, and that's across the St. Johns River from where we're at, where the Huguenots and Jean Ribault started one of the first settlements in this area. He was a Huguenot. It was a time when the French and the Spanish and the English, they all hated each other and was fighting, but there was massacres on both sides. I don't think anybody knows what started the whole thing, but I guess it was a "you're in my backyard and I don't want you here" thing. Now these would have been used outside the fort area here. And these were all old and dilapidated, but when these are sharp and new, they would hurt you, buddy. They would have these all around as an additional barricade. So anyway, like I said, like, subscribe. Appreciate you. God bless you, and y'all have a great day now.